Well, hello there. My name is Miss Trenda, and today we're going to be doing a little bit of Juneteenth cooking. Now, we're sorry that you can't actually be here with us today, so we're going to do this virtually for you guys. And today we're going to be making an assortment of foods that would have been made around Juneteenth. So today we are actually here at Darner's Chance, where the Bentley sisters, who were actually two enslaved women that were here on this property, and they are important because they actually petitioned for their freedom back here in the 18th century, and they actually won that petition. So that, just to acknowledge the space here that we're at today and the significance of that space. So today we're actually going to be making something called hoe cakes, or corn cakes, or even Johnny cakes. So those are some of the different type of terms that you might have heard. And all they are today are pancakes. So if you like pancakes, that's what these are. Now, so the history of hoe cakes is that the enslaved people, this was a very popular meal because they would actually eat these because it was actually filling, it was easy to make, and you can make a lot of it. So they would make these hoe cakes, and they would turn into like kind of like a hard cookie at times, and then you could actually take them, put them in your pocket, and then the enslaved people could actually go out in the field and work all day, and then when they would eat, they could stop, eat their hoe cake, and then keep on working. Now, sometimes you could actually, if you had more time to kind of sit down and eat it, you could actually use molasses. Molasses was a staple for hoe cakes instead of syrup. So molasses was that gooey, sticky stuff. It's kind of a bitter taste, so you pour molasses on it, and it's just like pancakes. Okay, so let's talk about the ingredients in hoe cakes. So here we have your cornmeal. Now, if you guys don't know, cornmeal actually comes from corn. So we have cornmeal. You can also do sugar, but today we're going to use brown sugar. They also had brown sugar back then. A little bit of salt. You need some eggs, so you can go to the chicken coop and get some eggs. That's what they would have done back then. You can also take some bacon. Now, this is kind of like an added piece that I'm doing today, because usually hoe cakes are just pancakes. But what I'm going to do with the bacon, we have a skillet that is warming up, and I'm going to cook the bacon first because we're going to use the grease from the bacon to actually keep the pan greased up so we don't have the hoe cake sticking. And then after I cook the bacon, I'm actually going to crumble it up and put it in the bacon, or in the hoe cake. Okay, so I'm going to make the batter and then put little pieces of the bacon into the batter itself. And then in this little jug here I have some water. Now, you could use water or you could use milk. So just depending on which you want to do. Now, you can make hoe cakes at home because these are all ingredients that you can get today. You can get the cornmeal at the store. You can, of course, buy eggs. You can get salt, the brown sugar. So everything that's here on the table, you can also buy at the store. So you can make those ingredients as well. So, and if you also notice that you don't see any measuring cups, because back then, the enslaved women that were the cooks, cooking was one of the skilled labors that enslaved women could do. It was a very prestigious skill that you could do, because even today, you have people who go to culinary art school so they can become chefs. So back then, because a lot of enslaved women didn't know how to read, they had to kind of eyeball when it came to measuring. So you might see some recipes or receipts that might say, oh, a pinch of sugar, a pinch of this, cook it until it looks done. So it doesn't really give you like guidelines on like how much to cook it, because even in the oven, it might say, oh, you set the oven at 350. Well, since we're doing it over fire, we can't really set the fire at 350, but that was kind of like the average temperature of the coal. So that's why most ovens start off at 350. Little cool fact there for you. All right, so let's get started with the bacon. So I'm gonna come over here to the skillet. So this is called a spider skillet because it has 3 legs. I'm not sure you guys can see that, but I'm gonna put my bacon on here. See if I can get one more piece to sit on there. Now, spread this out a little bit. There we go. All right, now today is about 80, 81 degrees today. Imagine having to do this on a 90, 100 degree day. And imagine doing this inside, maybe a brick kitchen or some kind of kitchen of some sort that didn't have any air conditioning. And these are some of the conditions that these women had to work in. A lot of times you could always tell who the cook was within the plantation, because if you see how I have my arm sleeves rolled up, well, it's hot. And the reason being is sometimes if you would look, you could see sometimes where the women would have scars, and that would be from the heat. So being over this fire, if I have my arm over here long enough, it could burn it. And so sometimes the women would have burn marks on their arms, like I have one right there from a little while ago. But yeah, so that's kind of one way that you could actually tell who the cooks were. So you would be cooking all day. You would get up sunrise to sunset and be cooking all day for the house. So these are some of the conditions that maybe the Bentley sisters would having to work in. So just want to give you a little bit more information about what I'm wearing. So this is a traditional late 18th, 19th century dress, clothing. So I have what's called a petticoat, okay? Now the brown part is a petticoat, so it's basically a skirt. But then under it is something called a shift. And so basically that is like my nightgown. Now on top of that I have, well also in here, I have my pocket. And this is actually a pocket that I made myself. So that's where I can keep some of my hoe cakes like we talked about. So you could keep your food in here, just other little trinkets that you might need. And then this is your jacket. Now I'm wearing the jacket today, but sometimes in the summertime, because it would be so hot, you didn't necessarily have to wear the jacket part. You could just wear your shift and then put your neckerchief or your scarf on. Now what I have on my head is, this is my head wrap. Now between the 18th and 19th centuries, depending on where you were in the colonies, depicted what kind of head wrap you were wearing. This is a traditional 19th century style, like it's very simple. And there's a whole history behind head wraps themselves. For example, when the Africans were first brought over here, every time people would come over, they would get what was called a Negro rag, just kind of like a cloth to put on your head. Now one of the reasons why they did that was because they didn't like how our hair looked. They didn't see anything like that before. They thought it was weird. They thought it was unnatural, and so they wanted us to cover our heads. Also, it was another way for some of the enslaved women, for the ones that were very light skinned, if you had a head wrap on, they knew that you were an enslaved person, so some of them could pass for white. So that's how they kind of knew that you were an enslaved person. But throughout the years, you might see black women today wearing head wraps, because we had kind of taken that tradition back. And now you see gorgeous head wraps. I even wear head wraps myself even today. So the history of the head wrap is very interesting and kind of varies throughout the different African diaspora, which is really cool. Cooking some bacon. Now, pork was a very popular meat, because with the hogs actually could reproduce piglets very quickly. They had a very quick turnaround. So once the mama pig would have her babies, she could have more babies in a matter of weeks. So you always had just enough hogs around. There we go. And you would use every part of the hog when you butchered it. All right, so what we're going to do now, the rest of the bacon is baking right now, or cooking right now. So we're going to go ahead and make the batter for our hoe cakes. So I have my water, and I'm going to put a little bit of my cornmeal in here. You know what, I'm just going to dump it all, because we're just eyeballing this, remember? And that's what makes for some of the best cooks. I don't know if some of your parents at home can just do that, but that is not that simple. So this is the brown sugar that I'm putting in. So now I have the cornmeal and the brown sugar. And then this is some of the salt, because you still need some salt for baking. Or now we're frying. Okay. And then we're going to take a couple of the eggs. I'm going to start off with a couple of the eggs. I'm not sure. Let's see what it looks like. All right. If you notice, I have my apron here. This is actually how you would wipe your hands off. And now we're going to add a little bit of our water. You want to mix it up. All right. As I'm mixing, I might need a little bit more water, so I'm going to add a little bit more. Because you don't want it soupy, you want it to look like pancake batter. There we go. Pop up that brown sugar some. All right. So now you have your hoe cake batter. Now, if you didn't know, you can actually use cornmeal too to make cornbread. Okay, so you can make anything like cornbread and other stuff that's made out of corn, but mainly cornbread. So for those of you at home, if you like cornbread, go get some cornmeal and make some cornbread. All right, so we're going to be finishing crumbling up our bacon. Now, one thing I almost forgot to put in that is a very important ingredient is our lard. Now, for those of you who do not know what lard is, it's an animal fat. Now, can anybody might want to guess what animal it comes from? Well, for those of you who guessed pig, you are correct. This is actually pig's fat. Okay. Now, earlier I said that you use every part of the pig, and when I say every part, you use every part, so including the fat. So we're going to take some of this. And basically, if you can buy lard at the store, so you can always go to your local grocery store and get some lard. And lard usually goes and replace the butter. So if you don't have lard, you can always use butter. Because they did have butter back then as well. They would actually churn the butter. And so we're going to add the lard in with it. And I'm just going to add the rest of this in here as well. Okay. And stir it in there. We're going to finish. Put the bacon in there. Now you can actually make these hoe cakes or Johnny cakes. You can make it without bacon. I'm just putting bacon in there just to kind of give it a little pizzazz. But most times you would actually do it without the bacon. Because everybody loves bacon, right? Break all of that up. And I'm using every single piece of bacon that we cooked in the skillet. All right, now that we have our batter for our hoe cakes, we are going to actually put them on the skillet. Make sure I don't. Let's see. So you just dab a little on the frying pan. And so just like pancakes, once one side is done, I should be able to flip it over and cook the other side. I'm gonna do one more. Okay. So we're gonna let those cook and then I'm gonna flip them over and see how they turn out. When you're cooking by the fire, I know a lot of people sometimes worry about me like catching on fire, but because these are natural fibers, the natural fibers won't burn. They're just smolder. So I'll know if I'm getting too close because I'll see them smolder, but I won't like catch on fire like you see on TV. Ooh, awesome, they're looking good. Okay. Flip these over. Ah, there we go. See, they look like pancakes, don't they? There we go. So let the other side cook. Let's see, got a little piece of bacon that escaped right there. All right. And again, you can make these at home. A lot of these recipes you can actually look online. There's actually some great resources out there of enslaved cooking, African American cooking. So a lot of the staples that you like to eat in American cuisine came from the enslaved community. So if you like okra or you like watermelon, those actually came from the continent of Africa. If you like barbecue, it said that barbecue was invented by the enslaved people. So a lot of great food that's kind of in our cuisine right now that people of every generation, every color eat today. All right, so welcome back, y'all. See, my hoe cakes are now finished. So let's look at some other foods that they would have been eating on their first Juneteenth. So let's start off over here. So we have our sorrel, which is a red drink that is commonly popular in Africa. So it's red was very popular for the enslaved, for the black community, because it means ingenuity and resilience. Okay, so we have our sorrel. We also have our sweet potato pie. Now these are actually sweet potatoes. These are also come from the continent of Africa as well. So you can make yams, sweet potatoes. So here we have a sweet potato pie that was very popular. It's even popular in today's foods. We also have our watermelon. So everybody loves watermelon. And the watermelon is also another food from Africa. See the common theme here? And then we have our collard greens. Collard greens. These are what collard greens looked like if you were to just pick it out from the garden. So it kind of looks like this. And you just cook it in a cooking skillet, cook it in a pot. And then this meat piece right here is a piece of pork, piece of ham hock. So you use that to kind of give it that nice little meaty taste to it. You can make it with the ham hock or you can make it without. So you don't have to put both in there. And then we have our black-eyed peas, again another staple from the continent of Africa, when we chopped up some ham hock and put it in there as well. Okay, and then one of the last things we have is our pulled pork, so barbecue. Okay, so remember I said that barbecue was believed to be invented by the enslaved as well. So this is just some of the foods that you might have seen at the first Juneteenth. As you guys may know, that these are foods that we actually still eat today. So if you're wanting to celebrate Juneteenth in the form of cooking, these are some of the meals that you can cook. So thank you guys for joining us here today. I hope that you have learned all about Juneteenth and why we celebrate Juneteenth and the importance of Juneteenth. So if you'll go ahead with me, grab your red drink, and we're going to toast to resilience, to strength, to prosperity. Really good.